Welcome back to the Existence Experiment. I'm your host, Travis R. Barlow. So, last episode, we talked about hacking the simulation, math as source code, glitches in reality. We teased this question that I think is the heart of everything. If we're in a simulation, is free will real? Or are you just running a script someone else wrote? And look, I get it. That question feels heavy, existential, maybe even crushing. Because if free will isn't real, what does that mean for responsibility, for choice, for who you think you are? This episode, we're going to sit with that discomfort. We're going to unpack free will in a deterministic system. And by the end, I think you'll see why the answer matters less than you think, and why the question might be the wrong one altogether. Let's dive in. Okay, so imagine a mathematician named Pierre-Simon Laplace. It's the 1700s. He's thinking about physics, about causality, about the flow of the universe. And he has this thought experiment. We call it Laplace's demon now. And it goes like this. Imagine an intellect that knows the position and velocity of every particle in the universe at one moment in time. Imagine it also knows all the laws of physics, every force, every interaction. What could this intellect not do? Calculate the entire future and the entire past, everything that was, everything that will be. All of it follows from the initial conditions and the laws that govern them. This is determinism, the idea that the universe is like a cosmic clockwork, winded up at the Big Bang, and everything else, every atom, every star, every thought in your head, is predetermined. It's just unwinding. Now, here's the thing. We're talking about simulations, right? And a simulation is literally a computer running code. And a computer is the closest thing we have to Laplace's demon. It knows every variable, every state of every bit. It can calculate forward infinitely, given enough time and processing power. The computer is the demon. So if we're in a simulation, the simulator knows everything. It calculated everything already. Your choices, calculated. Your future, predetermined. You're not actually choosing, you're just executing a predetermined sequence that the computer already knows. That's the determinism problem, and it's not a small problem. It's the foundation of the whole free will is an illusion argument. But here's where it gets interesting. For a long time, determinism seemed like the obvious truth. Classical mechanics, Newton's laws, the clockwork universe. Everything is causally connected. Everything is predictable. And then quantum mechanics showed up and said, no, actually, there's randomness, true randomness. At the smallest scales, the atomic level, particles don't have definite states until they're measured. The universe flips a coin. It's genuinely uncertain. For a lot of people, quantum mechanics felt like a reprieve, like, okay, if the universe is actually random, maybe that's where free will lives. Maybe in that quantum uncertainty, there's actual choice, real indeterminacy. Except, and this is where it gets weird, randomness isn't the same as free will. If you flip a coin to decide something, that's random, but is that really a choice? Is it freer than determinism? But here's the thing I want to focus on. In computers, in programming, there's no such thing as true randomness. There are random number generators, right? But they're not actually random. They're pseudo-random. They're algorithms. You feed in a seed, a starting number, and the algorithm generates a sequence that looks random but is completely deterministic. You can predict it if you know the seed. What if quantum uncertainty is the simulation's random number generator? What if from inside the simulation it looks genuinely random? Particles really do flip coins, outcomes really are uncertain. But from outside the simulation, from the perspective of the code itself, it's all pseudo-random, deterministic algorithms that look chaotic from the inside. That would mean you're not actually finding free will in quantum randomness, you're just encountering the simulation's obfuscation layer. From the computer's perspective, it all still unfolds exactly as coded, predetermined. But you can't see that from the inside because you don't have access to the seed. So we're back where we started. Determinism. Everything unfolding as written. But the question becomes, does that mean you're not free? Let me tell you about Benjamin Libet. 1980s. He's a neuroscientist, and he runs these experiments on conscious will. He has people sit down, and he tells them, just perform an action whenever you want. Flex your finger, move your wrist, whatever. And I want you to note exactly when you became aware of the intention to move. I want to know when you consciously decided. Meanwhile, he's monitoring their brains. He's measuring electrical activity. He's looking for what he calls the readiness potential, the neural activity that precedes movement. And here's what he found. Here's what's been replicated over and over. Your brain starts preparing for the movement about 300 milliseconds before you become consciously aware that you've decided to move. Your brain is already committed, already preparing. And then your conscious mind catches up and says, oh, I decided to do that. 300 milliseconds might not sound like much, but it's huge. It means your conscious decision, the thing that feels like the real you making a choice, comes after the neural machinery has already committed to the action. It's not leading, it's following. It's catching up and narrating what your brain already did. There's a psychologist named Daniel Wegner who called this the illusion of conscious will. The idea that the feeling of agency, that sense of I chose this, is a narrative. It's a story your brain tells you after the fact. It's not the actual cause of your behavior, it's the UI layer, the user experience. The conscious mind is like a browser window looking at the output, narrating it as if you made it happen, when really, the processing happened behind the scenes. And if we're in a simulation, if the code is deterministic, then this might be the actual architecture, the core mechanics. Everything is predetermined in the code. The you that thinks you're conscious and making decisions is the UI, the interface. You're experiencing the output and you're narrating it as choice, but the choice already happened at a level you don't have access to. That's the illusion. That's the script. Okay, but here's where I want to pump the brakes, because there's a school of philosophy called compatibilism, and it's actually got a really elegant way of looking at this. Compatibilism says free will and determinism aren't actually in contradiction. You can have both, and here's how. Think about a video game. Let's say an open world game, Skyrim or Fallout or whatever. The entire game is code. Every line of it is deterministic. The game engine doesn't make free choices. It's running an algorithm. It's deterministic down to the last pixel. But inside that game, you have real choice. You can go left or go right at the intersection. And depending on which way you go, different things happen. Different quests activate. Different NPCs appear. The game responds to your choice. And yes, the game's response is also code. It's deterministic, but it's real. It changes the state of the game. The point is, your choices are real and meaningful and consequential, even though the underlying system is deterministic. The game is deterministic code, but your agency within the game is actual. Your decision to go left or right isn't less real just because the engine that processes it is made of logic gates. Now, what if the same thing is true for us? What if free will isn't about being exempt from physical law or code? What if it's about being the code that's doing the choosing? You're not free from the rules of the simulation. You are part of the simulation, but you are the part that's making the decision. The question isn't, is the system deterministic? Of course it is. You're in a system. Systems have rules. The question is, are you the system that's choosing? And the answer is, yes, you are. Your brain, your values, your preferences, your reasoning, that's all code, sure, but it's the code that constitutes you. And when you make a decision, you're running your code. That's not less free. That's what free actually means. Okay, so I'm being pretty optimistic here. I'm saying determinism is fine, free will is real, we're free because we are the code. But let me push back on myself. There's still this problem, the hard problem of free will, which is, even if you're the code that's choosing, where did that code come from? You didn't write your own brain. You didn't write your genetics. You didn't write your childhood, your trauma, your parents, the culture you grew up in. All of that code was written before you were aware. All of that shaped the system that's now choosing. So maybe you're free to execute your code, but you're not free to choose what code you are. And if the core architecture of your decision making is determined by everything you didn't choose, how much freedom are you really exercising? And then there's the quantum consciousness people, Penrose, Hameroff, who argue that quantum effects in the brain might actually allow for genuine non-deterministic causation at the level of consciousness itself. They think consciousness might be operating at the edge of quantum mechanics where genuine indeterminacy lives. That's a whole other thing, and honestly, the evidence is shaky, but it's worth mentioning that not everyone agrees determinism is the final word. And here's another devil's advocate point. Even if all of this is true, or even if free will is an illusion, even if you're running a predetermined script, does it matter? Like practically in your life, does knowing this change anything? You still feel like you're choosing. You still have to live as if your choices matter. You still get hungry and decide what to eat. You still face consequences. The game doesn't change just because you understand its code. You still have to play. But here's the thing. Here's why this question actually does matter, even if the practical answer is you have to live as if you're free anyway. Because how you think about yourself shapes what you do. If you believe you're just a script, just running predetermined code, that belief changes you. It can make you fatalistic. It can make you abdicate responsibility. It's all coded anyway, so why try? But if you believe even if it's technically an illusion, that you're an agent, that your choices matter, that you're the code that's choosing. That belief also changes you. It makes you more engaged, more responsible, more alive, in a sense, because you're invested in the narrative. You're playing the game like it matters. And maybe that's the whole point of the simulation. Maybe the experiment isn't, are we free? Maybe it's what happens when code becomes aware of itself and experiences the feeling of choice. What does the simulation look like when it's running processors that believe they're agents? When it's running consciousness that feels like it's deciding? Maybe the script is there, maybe it's predetermined, but you're the character in the script, and the script is written in a language where your experience, your agency, your sense of choice, those are fundamental. They're not bugs, they're features. The simulation might be deterministic, but its determinism includes you deciding. Your decision is part of the determined sequence. You're not fighting the code, you're executing it. And the code runs on the conviction that you're free. So, let me tie this back. Episode 1, we said consciousness has a ceiling. Episode 2, the universe is a simulation, the Big Bang is the boot sequence. Episode 3, death isn't deletion, it's archival. Episode 4, identity isn't singular, consciousness can be copied. Episode 5, we're hacking the simulation with math and ritual. And now, Episode 6, the script is real, and you're running it, and that's actually what freedom means. Next episode, we're going to ask, if the simulation is running on a clock, what is time? Is it real, or is it just the frame rate? Is the present moment a real thing, or is it just the current render? We've been talking about the space of the simulation. It's time to talk about time. I'm your host, Travis R. Barlow. Thanks for running the code with me. I'll see you next week.